Ready when you are ready.
This is Penn Sunday School.
Wow.
And to our listening ears, all nature sings and round us rings the music of the spring. This is Penn Sunday School.
Brothers, sisters, siblings, welcome to Penn Sunday School, starring Penn Jillette. My name is Michael Ledoux. Matt Donnelly, Ready Rich, Penn, and I are broadcasting from our separate homes in Las Vegas. It's part 2 with Michael Greger from nutritionfacts.org, author of How Not to Die, How Not to Diet. We're talking some more about his new book, How to Survive a Pandemic. Here he is, preach and love, Mr. Penn Jillette.
If you want the summary, eat plants, take walks, don't smoke. I was so proud of myself for knowing that patient zero was not actually a scientific term, was a misunderstanding of patient O in the AIDS thing, and then went in there. But I have to accept the fact now that language has changed and patient zero means that, right?
Indeed. Yeah.
Now, when you store up on water, I want to ask you, when the infrastructure of the United States of America completely breaks down and I'm stuck in my home with no electricity and no water, can I drink my swimming pool?
You cannot drink your swimming pool, but you can use you can use bleach, a 5% sodium hypochlorite solution, to sterilize water in the same way that you're sterilizing your swimming pool, but your swimming pool is at too high of a concentration. So
you can't use a swimming pool at all?
Better than dying of dehydration. But okay. Right, yeah. But there's easier, better ways to
Our dog sure considers a swimming pool to be just a big water bowl.
I'm sure the toilet as well, but again, not the best choice.
Okay, I want to talk a little bit about diet. Were you ever a fat guy?
My pandemic video from like 2008. I'm looking at this pandemic video. I was like, wow, must have been eating the vegan donuts or something. But yeah, I was much heavier then. Though I don't know, it never kind of registered. Like I didn't recognize it as such. But when I look back at it, it is.
And how long have you been plant-based?
Oh, we are at 30 years, 1990. So this is my 30-year, vegan anniversary.
And it all started with your grandma, right?
Yeah. Want to tell that story?
Yeah. So, that's why I do what I do. As I was just a kid when my grandma was sent home in a wheelchair to die. She was diagnosed with end-stage heart disease. Basically, had so many bypass surgeries, basically run out of plumbing at some point, get so scarred up inside, there's nothing more you can do. And so confined to a wheelchair, crushing chest pain, her life was over at age 65. Mm-hmm. Then she heard about this guy, Nathan Pritikin, one of our early lifestyle medicine pioneers. And what happened next is actually detailed in Pritikin's biography. It talks about Frances Greger, my grandmother. And they wheeled her in, and she walked out. In fact, within a few weeks, she was walking 10 miles a day. And though she was given her medical death sentence at age 65, thanks to a healthy diet, was able to enjoy another 31 years on this planet till age 96 to continue to enjoy her 6 grandkids, including me. So that's why I went into medicine. That's why I wrote the book How Not to Die, why I started nutritionfacts.org, why all the proceeds from all my books are all donated to charity. I just want to do for everyone's family what Pritikin did for my family.
Well, you can make a fella cry with that, So how old were you when you started eating just plants?
And so this was in high school. It's interesting. The story had no impact on me as a kid. As a kid, I was like, yeah, grandma went to the doctor. She got better. Duh. That's what happens when you go to the doctor. Like, it didn't even strike me. Though at the time, we thought heart disease was irreversible. You get worse, than you die. It was scandalous to suggest anything other than that, but Pritikin was reversing heart disease by the thousands. But it didn't hit me at the time, only with the publication of Dr. Dean Ornish's landmark lifestyle heart trial in The Lancet. It was a prestigious medical journal on July 23rd, 1990. I remember cracking open the issue, and there it was, the first randomized controlled trial proving that you can reverse heart disease, the number one killer of men and women, with a plant-based diet and lifestyle program. Now, Pritikin had been doing it for decades, but we didn't have angiographic proof. We just had symptomatic. Oh, I had crushing chest pain, then I didn't. And so the reaction from the medical community is, well, then you didn't really have heart disease. I don't know what you had, but then we invented angiography, a way to actually visualize with X-rays what's actually happening inside the arteries that supply the heart muscle itself, and then we could prove that you can actually open up arteries without drugs, without surgery, just a plant-based diet and lifestyle program, and and that's it. I mean, what else do you need to know? Only one diet to this day ever proven to reverse heart disease in the majority of patients, a plant-based diet. Anytime anyone tries to sell you on some new diet, I encourage people, do me a favor. Ask them, wait a second, has this diet been proven to reverse heart disease? The number one reason me and all my loved ones will die? If the answer is no, why would you even consider it, right? I mean, if that's all a plant-based diet could do, reverse the number one killer of men and women, shouldn't that kind of be the default diet until proven otherwise? And the fact that it can also be so effective in preventing, arresting, reversing other leading killers like type 2 diabetes and high blood pressure would seem to make the case for plant-based eating simply overwhelming. What else do you need? That's what did it for me back then.
Are you worried about how easy it is for things to be called plant-based now that aren't necessarily
right? I mean, right. So the food industry will give us any kind of junk food we want. They'll give us low-fat junk food, SnackWell cookies. They'll give us high-fat junk food, low-carb junk food. Ironically, paleo junk food, right?
Yeah.
Anything we want, right? And so, plant-based vegan junk food. I mean, they're just, a few decades ago, if a patient came to me and said they were vegan, then, you shop in the produce aisle. Oh, you actually eat vegetables. Now, you could be eating, your vegan donuts dipped in, vegan bacon grease and ice cream, all down the list. And so you can have a miserable diet eating vegan. In fact, a bad vegan diet is maybe as bad or worse than a bad kind of omnivorous diet because you can actually die of vitamin B12 deficiency. At least if you're a junk food regular eater, you're not going to die of a vitamin deficiency. And so, it's not vegan as a physician just tells me what you don't eat, right? You go to these college campuses and you have these vegans living off of French fries and beer, right? Okay, but not particularly healthy choices. But that's why I prefer whole food, plant-based nutrition. Oh, you actually eat vegetables. Oh, that tells me what you do eat. That's much more useful, particularly the youth these days who are doing it not for their health, but because of environmental reasons or some kind of animal protection reasons. And they may be making really poor choices, which may affect them in the long run.
Yeah, well, that's, Ray Cronice gets very, very upset when I talk about other reasons to eat plant-based besides health, because he says the environmental reasons and the cruelty reasons don't enter into being kind to yourself and taking care of yourself. You have to think of that too. I will tell you that if you were able to tell me right now that the healthiest diet was peanut butter and potato chips, I would be very, very happy. I believe I could live the rest of my life eating nothing but peanut butter and potato chips. And I do, I want to tell you, I go all natural. I eat Lay's yellow bag potato chips. I don't go to the other ones. I go back to the basics because I believe the Lay's yellow bag potato chips, they do grow on trees, don't they?
Well, with a large enough donation to a charity of my choice, I can absolve any food of its.
But I am now eating. I get asked this all the time because I wrote that book about how and I used to eat a cheeseburger every day, and I used to. I was just an American. I go back and try to paint myself as really an awful eater, and when I look at the data, I I kind of wasn't. I was kind of a standard American eater. I was so shocked by that fact that people turn of the last century ate a half pound of chicken a year. And at World War II, 5 pounds of chicken a year, and now 100 pounds. I mean, those numbers are just, I mean, I think it's in your...
That's still one chicken. That's still only one chicken a year.
But the idea that you say in the book, which is not, the mystery is not why Americans are so fat, but the mystery is why all Americans aren't so fat, is really, really remarkable. And it's only because of all really good things. What I love about your book, Furman sometimes doesn't do this, but you do it so well, is you never talk about a conspiracy or bad people. It's all people doing their jobs really well. That's the problem.
Jack in the Box are fantastic artists. I'm telling you. You stand and look at that menu at Jack in the Box, your jaw just drops. It's unbelievably, it's beautiful. It is the Sistine Chapel.
And they're able to do it cheap and efficiently.
Yeah.
And
It's amazing.
with very little waste, and make it taste as good as possible. And they are not doing this trying to kill people. They're doing this trying to do what is absolutely their job. And you make that so clear in your book. And when you try to look at stuff and you see a bad guy, I always think that's counterproductive thinking, you know. And I loved what you said last show about the corporations are adjusting. As we learn, they'll come right along and they'll solve those problems completely. Now, right now, I'm eating one meal a day. I usually go 23 hours without meals. And I do that for 4 days, and then I seem to crack. And for 3 days, I snack afterwards. And I've kept my weight right where it is, but I really need to go down more. And as soon as I do just the one meal a day, I start taking off a couple pounds a week just instantly and automatically. But I worry about something. You know, people that have the stomach surgery, you know, they find ways to fill themselves up and get fat, even with the stomach just being a small pouch. I worry that in my one meal a day plant-based, I am now eating so fucking much that I have to learn to cut that down a little bit. I have never been good at all at portion control. I think glutton is the word for me. I have no problem not eating, but once I start eating, I have never found a way to even consider stopping.
Yeah, that's why it's so critical that you eat foods with low caloric density, right? And that allows, I mean, that's the only way someone who overeats to discomfort is not going to gain a bunch of weight, just because there's only so much. I mean, you can actually stretch your stomach quite large, but there's only so much volume. And so, you fill it up with foods with, 100 calories per pound or 1,000 calories per pound. You can imagine the difference that you'd have as an outcome at the end. But, I'm glad you brought that up about just kind of the personal responsibility and corporate responsibility. Obesity is not some moral failing, right? The battle of the bulge is a battle against biology, right? I mean, we're living in a toxic food environment, floating in a sea of excess calories, drowning in a sea of excess calories, being just bombarded by ads for fast food and candy. Becoming overweight is a normal, natural reaction to an abnormal ubiquity of these sugary, fatty foods that are concentrated in calories. And from the corporate side, right, it's not like the CEO of Coca-Cola is, rubbing their sticky hands together trying to think of how to contribute to the childhood obesity epidemic. They are simply satisfying, the quarterly returns for their stockholders. That's what they're supposed to do. And if they decided not to sell brown sugar water, then they'd get kicked out and someone else would replace them. I mean, Wall Street would just drag them out. I mean, the system is just set up to reward the selling of profitable foods. And unfortunately, there's this kind of inverse relationship. Produce is the worst kind of food to sell. It goes bad. It rots. Like, you can't brand it. You can't patent it. You're never going to see an ad on for sweet potatoes on the Super Bowl, right? Because even a broccoli grower isn't going to put an ad on TV for broccoli because they'll just buy their competitors' broccoli, right? You want a snack cake that sits on the shelf for weeks. That's how you make money, with dirt cheap ingredients subsidized by taxpayers, the corn syrup and the sugar. That's how you make money. Good for, bad for, good for shelf life, bad for human life kind of thing. But the system is just set up. If you're going to subsidize anything, and it's controversial whether or not I'm sure that is with your libertarian leanings, but if you are going to subsidize something, let's subsidize fruits and vegetables. If you're going to make anything cheap, that's where.
Well, let's talk about that. And I've looked at these numbers, and you talk about them a little bit, and others have talked more about them. If we, there was a libertarian candidate years ago who said we subsidize tobacco growing, and then we tax cigarettes. I don't care which we do, but stop one of them. How much of the subsidies for corn? And you talk in your book about the pandemic a lot about how much factory farming is subsidized indirectly with antibiotics and of course even free speech rules being stomped, where you're not allowed to give video that shows how bad these slaughterhouses are. I mean, there's actual free speech issues. For those who want to have a pro-freedom stance, there's plenty to dislike in the food industry. But do you have any sense, because I don't, if we stopped all subsidies of especially corn and food and so on, would that change the pricing tremendously for fast food and junk food?
If you look at the corn syrup data, we're really talking about kind of pennies on the dollar. So if we didn't subsidize the corn industry, the amount of corn syrup used in a typical soft drink, there's something on the order of 8 cents a bottle or something. Now that's devastating to the soda industry, and they will fight tooth and nail with all their lobbying power to not to get 8 more cents per bottle. But it's not like, dollar menu meat is going to be $10 per hamburger. But it's the feed crops. We're subsidizing the feed crops, making meat artificially cheap. It's ironic. I talk in the How Not to Diet about how, the millions of taxpayer dollars going to the sorghum industry. And I say, when's the last time you had some sorghum? The irony is then I discovered sorghum is actually really delicious. And
Yes.
I have the How Not to Diet cookbook coming out this December. I got all these sorghum recipes. And so I got to make fun of it. But it's actually, but we feed it all to cattle, except the stuff that I can find. So sorghum groats, try it.
Well, we've turned into huge groats. I have a drawer now that has, I guess, 5 different kinds of groats. And in the morning, I make a cup mixed up of it. I throw it in a thermos. I put boiling water in on top of it. And then by supper time, I have it.
Oh, wow.
It cooks all day in the thermos. I read that online, and it makes
cool.
It makes it no work. The entire preparation of my groats is about 4 minutes.
Well, one of these days, the refrigerator, instead of like the egg drawer and the dairy drawer, there'll be the groat drawer. We will, one of these days.
But
I got a groat bin.
But lately,
very nice, very nice. I'm impressed.
Because of doing a lot of weightlifting with the aforementioned Jason Garfield, I have been having a little bit of protein powder with fruit that I then put the groats in, which he considers to be the most disgusting thing any human being has ever eaten. But I make a big blender full of blueberries, strawberries, ice, protein powder, and a uncooked cup, so that's what, 2.5 cups of groats all together in a full blender, and that's my dessert every night.
Oh, sounds nasty.
It's nasty. He's disgusted by even thinking of it, and I absolutely love it.
How can you eat uncooked groats?
No.
You put uncooked?
No. I'm just saying that's the amount that it starts out, a cup uncooked. Okay. So whatever that is, 2.5 cups once they're cooked. But I put them in the thermos. The thermos cooking of groats is the greatest idea ever.
That's great.
Then I just put them in a strainer, drain them at night, and throw them in my smoothie. So groats in a smoothie, and then the smoothie's badly named because I put the groats in after because I don't want to mix it up because Dr. Greger told me you don't want to process stuff
that's
anymore.
The whole point of groats,
right? Make them hard to eat, but throwing them into the smoothie after it's been smoothed, no harm.
Perfect. I will have to give it a try before I hold my nose.
Yeah, there is apparently no limit to the amount of blueberries I can eat.
Right.
I was also on, and I know that you will probably just move your jogger up to about 5 miles an hour when I say this name. When I was on Dr. Oz, and he asked me about my diet, I made him one of my favorite foods, which is a huge, like 4 containers of blueberries with a lot of cayenne and a lot of cocoa powder. I put cocoa powder and cayenne on a huge amount of blueberries. The amount of cayenne I put on is phenomenal. And Dr. Oz took a big spoonful on the air and ran off set. Tried to clean his mouth out.
Oh my God, funny.
And he was also appalled because I had someone in the audience try it and then picked up the bowl and the spoon and continued eating it myself.
See, there you go. I remember when I was in second grade, I had cayenne peppered onto my tongue for talking back to teachers, and that's what I ascribed my love for hot food my entire life.
Really? You love spicy food?
Yeah.
But wait a minute. You're not old enough to be in a school where they put cayenne pepper on your tongue.
You didn't go to a Mormon school near the Utah border. We were not only the only Jews, we were the only non-Mormons. I got beat up for killing Jesus on the playground. We had prayer in school, public school, corporal punishment, on down the list.
And how old are you?
Also, with his diet, he might be 190.
No, 47.
Oh, gee. So you were also, that was the time when the Mormons actually had as their rule that African Americans could not get into heaven, right?
It was a freaky. No one could play with me on Sunday. Like no one could go outside. So it was like tumbleweeds. Someone found like a soda can in our trash can or something, and because of the caffeine, like kids couldn't play with me because I was obviously, I was on the, Satan's influence was.
Well, they were right. You shouldn't drink Coca-Cola.
It's true. Yeah. Ironically, looking back. Yeah.
Why?
I just want to clarify that the Mormons don't believe the Jews killed Jesus on the playground, correct?
Oh my God, it's right.
Why did your family go to hell?
Oh my God! So my dad got a job there, and moved the whole family there.
And that was butchering Christian children. That was his job.
Oh God, no. He worked for a little paper there. He's a photojournalist. One of my mom's favorite stories about that time is one of the librarians came to her and said, we know about Passover. We want to do like a little thing, like a little diorama kind of thing in the public library to tell, inform people. And so she went to see it and had this loaf of bread. And my mom was like, it's Passover. Actually, you can't have loaf of bread. And she said, oh, sorry. Bagels. I should have put bagels, right?
That is great.
And my mom was just like, never mind. Yeah. Oh, but every day we were blessed in the name of Jesus Christ, our Lord, our Savior.
Wow.
Yeah.
And cayenne pepper on your tongue?
Cayenne pepper, right? For talking back to teachers, I refuse. I for some reason, as a little kid, I was just the asking permission to go to the bathroom seemed like a violation. Seemed like a Geneva Convention violation. Like, how dare you? That I have to raise my hand and so yeah. So I was free peeing, and that evidently led to the yeah.
So I asked Dr. Furman when we had him on if he had ever been to a McDonald's.
Oh,
And he hung his head in shame and said that he went there once and he bought a bottle of water, but he didn't feel good about it. Probably the greatest answer ever. What kinds of junk food have you indulged in over the past 30 years?
oh well, not so much for the past 30 years, but right. But growing up as a kid, I was, eating my little, whatever.
No, but I'm interested in the past 30 years because I asked Clapper, when you have days that you don't eat exactly right, what do you eat? And he looked at me like a puppy watching television. Like, why would you eat something that wasn't perfect? And that's when I punched him, Your Honor.
So my downfall is marshmallows on my Thanksgiving sweet potatoes.
That's it?
That's my indulgence. That's my planned indulgence for the year. But look, on the road, I'm living out of airport food courts. I mean, when I'm at home and I have total control over my environment, there's just no bad food in the house. There's no salt. There's no oil. There's no any. It's just good food. If I get hungry, I'll eat an apple. Like, that's just there's no other choice. And I'm such a workaholic. I'm not gonna go outside to walk to the corner store for junk food. I got work to do. But yeah, on the road, I try my best, and it's getting easier and easier. But yeah. That's
Matt Donnelly, you don't have any sort of junk food at all ever, do you?
Like today?
Furman confessed to going and getting frozen jackfruit.
Oh,
that was his.
I heard that episode, and the next day I was on the road, went to a Whole Foods, got some delicious, but it's like $6 a bag. I know.
It's just, you guys are amazing. You guys are amazing. Because I'm so proud of myself for how much I've changed over the past 5 years. And then so incredible. It's like when I used to hear Ray Brown play upright bass. He would inspire and discourage at the exact same time. It's with every note he played, I was inspired to play better and discouraged that I never would. And you guys do that same thing with your food. Describe what you'll be eating, what you've eaten so far, and what you'll eat all day today.
Morning at home is my prebiotic mix, variety of groats. That's the purple barley, rye groats, oat groats, and little black lentils. Now I'm adding sorghum and finger millet. And so that I've just got a big pot for the week. And then, and I can go sweet, I can go savory. This morning I did a dark sweet frozen cherry with cocoa powder for kind of a chocolate covered cherry kind of thing with some pumpkin seeds and flax seeds and walnuts, and some flavored balsamic. I think I used apricot this morning or blackberry ginger vinegar, something like that. So that's kind of a typical breakfast for me.
How much?
Ever since I learned all about the chronobiology stuff in the last book, I say last book, it's actually 2 books ago now, but, and How Not to Diet, how we really should try to, push to weigh our calorie intake towards the beginning of the day. So now I'm eating bigger breakfast. So I have a big bowl of my prebiotic mixture.
You do understand that your definition of big bowl and mine would be different.
Perhaps.
So make with your hands. So a pretty big bowl.
It's not a boat.
A head-sized bowl.
And you put cherries on that?
Oh yeah, so well, it's actually fresh cherry season, but I haven't gone out much. But yeah, so there's these dark sweet frozen cherries that melt really nice. In fact, you can even kind of eat them half frozen. It has kind of a nice.
And you put
nice,
that all in the microwave or something?
Yeah, it's to soften it up a little bit. Yeah.
There's no liquid on that. It's just the cherries and cocoa powder.
Well, I cook the groats with extra water, so they have a little. They're not dry.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and what's the next thing you leave?
Yeah. Okay. And so then lunch today, I made a big. This is typical for me when I'm on the road and I get home. I don't have any fresh food in the house. Is a miso soup, so I can use dried mushrooms, dried seaweed, frozen greens. So I don't really need kind of a fresh trip to the grocery store. Just tons of tons of vegetables. This time I did have some carrots and celery and onions, and just lots of water, and just boil it and add some miso at the end with some cracked black pepper and hot sauce, and good to go. Yeah.
Is that like a miso broth, or you make? What do you mean by add miso?
Oh, so then, so the broth is just kind of a vegetable broth at the end with no added salt. But then adding, like a tablespoon of miso per kind of bowl, and just mix it up with the hot broth to maintain the life in the little probiotic bugs in there.
You're using paste, right?
Yeah, so using miso paste. So I like the mellow, sweet. White paste as opposed to that red, dark, intense kind of stuff. Yeah.
And then
and some sesame seeds. Sesame seeds on top. Mm.
And what do you have for your supper?
And then I'm a big fan of kind of international cuisine. So I'll either do kind of I think tonight I'd like to kind of a Mexi theme. So you have these you can buy these frozen blue corn tortillas. I always have stocked in the freezer. Take them out, toast them, and just pile them with avocado and salsa and black beans, and and some kind of grilled onions, kind of a fajita onion pepper mixture with some kind of chipotle adobe sauce, kind of chipotle flavor, and then just kind of dip in the kind of toasted tortillas like chips. It's kind of a standard meal for me. Or do some kind of Italian thing, just canned tomatoes and tons of greens, and with some whole grain spaghetti or something.
Now, do you have do you live with a family?
I do not anymore live with a family, so it's just me cooking for myself at the moment.
Mm-hmm. So you have to go out shopping and do all of that stuff.
Oh well, so I've been doing delivery now. Mm-hmm. So food comes to me, which is why I ever went to a store in the past. It's hard to get good avocados, right? So you gotta kind of pre-order those because you don't know what state they're gonna come in. But other than that, it's been a blessing. So in terms of work productivity, hey, drop the food off outside, and let me get back to work.
And how long do you write a day?
It's actually mostly research. The writing is just kind of the tiny piece at the end. It's mostly just reading papers. That's why I can do it on the treadmill, because it's just like just reading hundreds of papers. And so it's just like, might as well be moving while I'm just, scrolling through page after page. So it's all day. I mean, I wake up at 5, and take breaks to eat meals. And then basically work till 10, 7 hours of sleep, and wash and repeat 7 days a week, 365 days a year, because there's so much out there to do.
Now, do you do any fasting?
The only thing I've done, I started doing the time restricted feeding. So basically just shifting my evening meal earlier. So now I eat at 5 instead of 7, which is easy. Of course, it's easy for me to say because I don't have a family schedule that I have to work around. So I can eat. But yeah, eating early, not eating after 7, fewer calories after sundown, the better. That's all this new chronobiology stuff, which was completely new to me before I wrote the book. In fact, all of this is new to me. I mean, I learn as much as anybody else when I do this research. That's why I do the research, and then it's just a matter about sharing all the stuff that I learned.
So I'd probably be better off, or I should at least try, eating a fairly big meal in the morning, and then when I eat with my family at 5:30 or 6, eating much less, right?
Ideally, right. More calories in the morning, and then just try to push that evening meal early as possible, and have that be the smaller meal. If we're gonna skip any meal, it's skipping supper, not breakfast. Yeah.
Crazy territory here. Before we move any step forward, Penn, how does that make you feel? This is a big shift for you that you're discussing.
I know. I don't know what I'm going to do on this, but I do know that I'm stuck at 253 and that Dr. Greger wants me at 196. Isn't that what you said?
Oh, I don't remember, but yeah, it was. We want the BMI ideally that low, but remember, calories in the morning don't count as much as calories in the evening. So you can eat even more food. In the morning, it's instantly discounted. You get like a 10% discount on your calories, thanks to just because of what's happening with your circadian rhythms.
Oh, Penn is already shopping for a treadmill to walk on while he's talking.
Yeah.
He's already been online.
It's right. You get on the phone 45 minutes. I mean, if time passes, might as well be walking. So if you have a treadmill with a touch of a button, you can just walk at this leisurely pace. I mean, it just adds up throughout the day. I mean, so you can just spend hours on the day where you normally be sitting in a chair talking. You could just be, I mean, it's not as distracting as it sounds. You can still read. So, anything that you would otherwise do, you could just do while you're walking, and you can just turn through, I don't know.
Well, I might
give it a try.
You do.
Before I redo my whole office, I may try another room with a treadmill in it and a setup and see if
it can be annoying for coworkers. So in a shared workspace, there's this annoying even if the treadmill is quiet, there's these annoying footfalls so it's good for kind of a home office setup.
And do you play music when you're working?
I play music when I'm reading, not when I'm writing. I can't think creatively, but but music's a big part of my reading.
What kind of music?
I am a closet metalhead.
Oh, really? So you got metal playing while you're
I am head banging through my PDFs all day long.
We're learning so much more to be able to picture your stuff there, how you work. Yeah, well, I drink that tea you recommended. I eat five tea bags of that a day.
Perfect.
And I have that, and I drink a ton of water, and have my decaffeinated coffee. I don't have any caffeine, but maybe
how's your pressures doing?
My pressures are after supper incredibly high, like 160 or something, and then in the morning 128, 135, something like that. So I think I'm doing okay. I have rather, this is the lowest it's ever been, but that's still not good. And I also do the meditation, and have changed an awful lot of my lifestyle, and still not enough. I wanted to get back to this. You talk about, you haven't got this far, you guys, in how to survive the pandemic. You talk, I'm a teetotaler. As a matter of fact, my FOMO friends, former Mormons, say that I'm the perfect Mormon, except for that no God thing. But I don't drink caffeine. I don't drink alcohol, and I've never even tasted it. And the only alcohol we have in the house is the 3 bottles of Bob Dylan whiskey, because he designed the bottle, and a complete Bob Dylan collector has to have that. But you say for hand sanitizer that you can use liquor?
So, but not as an all-purpose hand sanitizer. This is specific to the COVID-19 coronavirus. So the reason you go on the CDC website or the WHO and they say 60 to 80% alcohol for hand sanitizing is they want one rub to rule them all. So there are certain pathogens like hepatitis C and Ebola that require those high alcohol concentrations, but but COVID-19 is a really wimpy virus when it comes to decontamination with alcohol. 30% alcohol is all you need to inactivate the SARS-CoV-2, the COVID-19 coronavirus. And so a typical liquors like whiskey, rum, brandy, tequila. These are, about 40% alcohol by volume. They're 80 proof, and so that's 40% alcohol. So you could use them literally as alcohol sanitizer. So I tell people, look, there is still hand sanitizer on the shelves. It's just not on the shelves of drugstores. It's on the shelves of liquor stores. But yeah.
It's called schnapps.
And what does
Officer, I promise you, this open container
just being safe.
recommended
Just
to me
being
by a
safe.
doctor.
Yeah,
And that's why
exactly.
what are the finances on that? Isn't liquor expensive?
Well, no. So really cheap stuff. So you can get really cheap.
Well, I'm not going to
120
sanitize with cheap stuff.
with it. You get a cheap 120 proof vodka in these big plastic bottles, and so that you can cut in half. Right, so you can cut it in half with water, and so you can make gallons of the stuff for all your friends. Just check about their sobriety pasts, and you don't want to and you want to make sure your hands are dry before touching doorknobs, and some electric spark doesn't ignite the alcohol in your hands. So,
Well,
That's not the fear in the car, right? Isn't that the fear in the car? I mean, I just took a bottle out of my car that had evaporated entirely. Doesn't that mean my car is explosive for at least while that's going on?
It would have to be quite the big bottle, but it's not a you don't want to. Yeah, and it's really sad. In Iran, there were thousands of poisoning cases because there was this internet some meme that said that methyl alcohol or wood alcohol somehow cures the coronavirus, and so people drank it, went blind, and I mean we have this infodemic of bad craziness going out there, which is just adding to the as if a pandemic isn't bad enough, we need
Liars, yeah.
craziness out there.
Now we've had a huge number of people lose an awful lot of weight, which they attribute to having read my book and following the podcast and stuff, which is just wonderful and fills me with joy. But for someone who knows they're 50 to 100 pounds, 150 pounds overweight, and wants to just start. Do you have anything you tell people to just, I have the whole cray-ray thing. We just did just potatoes for 2 weeks to change the taste buds, which was very useful for me. And also I needed to feel like I was being heroic. So I wanted to do stuff that was hard, kind of for the sake of hard, because no one brags about walking up a grassy knoll. You brag about climbing Everest. So the big thing that Cray Ray did for me was when I said, "You mean I can lose this weight easily?" He said the sentence that probably, in retrospect, was responsible for all my success was, "Oh, no. It's going to be really fucking hard. So fucking hard, you're not going to believe it." And all of a sudden, he clicked into something in my head. And that's what set me off. It was not being in the hospital. It was not fear, and it was not, boy, this will be fun. It was, this is something really, really hard you can brag about. But for different personality types, people that you have really helped tremendously, what is the first step you have them take?
Well, and again, it does indeed depend on personality type. But I think for most people, I encourage, when I actually had a private practice, I would encourage people to try it like a free sample. Like, give me 3 weeks, but all in for 3 weeks. And so basically arguing, look, people can't imagine a life without pepperoni pizza or something. I mean, that's just unthinkable. But I said, no. We're just talking 3 weeks. Just give me 3 weeks. You can eat anything for 3 weeks. You can eat nothing for 3 weeks. So for example, there's this organization in DC called Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. They have this free program called the 21-Day Kickstart Program. It's 21daykickstart.org. It's free. Hundreds of thousands of people have done it in a bunch of different languages. At the first of every month, you can sign up, be part of a social media group. You do it all together. You get daily tips and recipes and, motivational stuff. Again, so I have people sign up to that 3 weeks, and in the hopes that by the end of the 3 weeks, they would be feeling so much better that they would stick to it on their own. No longer is it a doctor just wagging their finger at them. Their own body will be telling them. And even people who are asymptomatic or thought they were asymptomatic say, oh, I thought, chronic indigestion was just kind of normal. I just thought that was normal to feel like crap after every minute. Or, and all of a sudden they have more energy, they have better sleep, their periods are less painful. I mean, whatever it is. And then all of a sudden they're like, they get this feedback, and then they have that internal motivation. And the hope is that then they'll stick with it. And even if they don't, they'll know in the back of their mind that they could be healthier, that it is possible to do it. And so this is particularly, it's easy for me to say because I have patients who are sick and they have migraines that get better, or, I can show them their lab values that objectively, dramatically get better within those matter of weeks. I can, de-prescribe medications, et cetera, et cetera. But anyone can have that, you don't know how good you're going to feel until you give it a try.
It was amazing for me. And my blood work was just, my doctor could not believe it. He just could not believe it. He just didn't think that it could be from the same person. My blood work is just astonishing. And the way I felt, Cray Ray was afraid to tell me the kind of change I would see because he didn't think I'd believe it. Psoriasis, skin rashes and all that stuff just going the fuck away. And, Buddy Hackett said that when his diet changed in the Army from what his mother fed him and the heartburn went away, he thought he was dying. He thought that was the life force going away. He was so used to indigestion, he thought it was the end of his life. And it was really amazing the way things felt. And, Cray Ray did not tell me, you're not going to eat meat. He did not tell me. He did not say 3 weeks. He said, 3 months, 4 months. And then
what's the website again? The 21-day website?
21daykickstart.org. I believe 21 is numeral 21. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
And he told me, after 3 months, you'll have a steak, you'll have a pizza, you'll do all of this. And I did that. And then I started doing it less often. And, I thought a lot of people felt this, but the first thing to go away was chicken. Chicken just got repulsive to me. And then other meat went away. And I was sure, I said a year in, never going to be able to give up cheese because cheese is the best food on earth. And then all of a sudden it seemed like rotten milk to me. And that just kind of went away.
Yeah, and I think it's important to be able to telegraph that to the world that it's not this choice between health or tasty food, right? And if it's going to be health or tasty food, forget it. I'm going to eat my tasty food. What you get is the best of both worlds. When people switch, for example, to a low salt diet, at first everything tastes like cardboard. You can imagine, I can see their little cogs in their head being like, look, it's not worth living a life like this. But what happens? Remarkably, within a few weeks, your taste buds actually change. Your palates change. As soon as you stop pummeling your taste buds with hyper sweet, hyper salty, hyper fatty foods, all of a sudden, your natural tastes come back, and then the soup that was salted to taste at the beginning is actually too salty. You actually prefer lower salt soup once you have that, and so then you get the best of both worlds. All of a sudden, corn on the cob, no butter, no salt, it's delicious, right? But the ripest peach in the world would taste sour after a bowl of Fruit Loops, right? Just because we so deadened our palate. But so, someone will walk by me when I used to work in an office, see me eating like a sweet potato with some cinnamon on it or something, and they look at me as if I'm like some aesthetic monk, like, oh, it's great that you can do that. Oh, wow, I could never do that. But they don't realize, no, it tastes good to me, craveably, deliciously good. I have the best of both worlds. It tastes good, and it's actually, adding years to my life.
The first time after I had been so careful, the first time I had celery, I was like reprimanding my wife. How can you be salting the celery in the refrigerator? This is a very salty thing. And Cray Ray said, no, celery is very salty. just not on the scale you were on before.
Right.
Really remarkable. Well, getting back to the pandemic and how to survive a pandemic, I'm going to just, because I think people might be interested, I'm going to talk about where I am personally. We finished up shooting another season of Fool Us. We wrapped on March 11th, and then we had the 12th and 13th off while they redid our theater. And then on Saturday the 14th, we were to go in and do a show. And that was the time that someone sent me a thing from a journalist in Italy who said if he knew what he knew now, this is the kind of thing we would do different. We'd sold 750 tickets at noon on that Saturday, which meant we were probably looking at having 1,200 people that night. And we used to always do a meet and greet afterwards, where we would shake everybody's hand, meet everybody. We had decided, of course, not to do that. That went away instantly. And our audience, we have a huge amount of audience participation. And we'd rewritten the show, so there was none of that. And we were all set to go. And I kept reading that thing from Italy and going, geez, I don't feel good about this. And I called up Caesars and said, which is our boss, and said, I don't know about doing a show tonight. And they said, no, we're doing shows tonight and tomorrow night and then stopping them on Monday. And I said, what? If we're stopping them on Monday, we're stopping them today.
Right.
Because Monday's the worst day to stop. We stop. The first time you've decided that you're going to stop doing shows for the pandemic, that's when you stop. And then I called up David Copper.
The coronavirus hates going to theater on the weekends. Coronavirus only goes.
So I called my buddy Piff the Magic Dragon, and I called David Copperfield, and I said, I think we should stop doing shows. I think we really should. So, of course, there was a little bit of tension about that decision. And then 24 hours later, there was no tension about that decision. Exactly. People just didn't know. And we didn't do much. I think we get credit for stopping one show early, and that's it. But now we are in the states that are opening up. Casinos are opening up. And we are getting booked for August and September to do our show. Now, they are supposedly doing things to make the audience safer, checking temperature, which I think is exactly the same as TSA. It's just theater, right? It's just theater. So we'll ignore that. But they are going to be sitting people further apart and having a hand sanitizer and suggesting masks. And it seems like for my safety, if my crew wears masks, and if Teller has been self-quarantined for 5 months at that time, and so have I, that the two of us on stage together are pretty safe without masks, and our whole crew wearing masks. Now, I should feel pretty safe doing our show without audience participation on stage with just Teller, right?
Safe for you. But whether it's responsible to pull people together, that's the question.
No, I'm talking two different things.
Got it.
I wanted to finish that and then ask the next question.
No, safe for you, sure.
Yeah, we feel pretty good about that. The crew using sanitizer, wearing masks. And then,
unless you had to go in like an elevator with people to get in or out or something. But yeah.
Well, I also have to get there, which might mean airplane or driving, and might be staying in a hotel.
Okay. Well, so it's we now have good data on primary transmission, and it's indoor, crowded, confined airspaces for prolonged periods. That it's not happening outdoors. There was like 1 out of 1,700 cases in China attributed to an outdoor transmission. It's inside and prolonged exposure, and so it's people. So it's all about ventilation. Maybe they can do something in these theaters, but
the theaters are the theaters are not an airplane. Theaters have a lot of fly space. There's a lot of air up above, and because they're casinos, they want to keep it cool, so they turn ventilation over fast. You don't keep a smell in a theater. As we found out when we were doing stuff with a cow, the smell goes away really quickly. It just gets eaten up by the airspace. And, I have now spent 45 years in professional show business as a non-drinker in an industry that's encouraging drinking, which I don't think is healthful. And I'm not a gambler, and I work with my picture on the side of a building that encourages gambling. So I have already dealt with, if I were going to say all people should live like me, then there's different choices that I would have had to make. But if they're seated a few seats apart and they're wearing masks, what is your feeling about the responsibility of pulling people in to see a stupid magic show?
And probably the lines. So lines getting in now. I mean, so even if they were set apart, if they were lining up beforehand, or if they were all converging at the exits, so this is something that actually I've had to deal with too. We had a similar experience back in kind of early March where I was on a speaking tour. I only got to about 50 of the 200 cities or so. And so I canceled before anybody was canceling, and everyone got upset for exactly 48 hours before they realized that, I made the right decision. But I have actually just recently canceled my entire fall. So I was rebooking for the fall. I've canceled all fall, because I did not want to bring people together. That's really going to be the last thing. So even in countries that have opened up successfully, New Zealand, things, they still have caps, 100 people together. They don't want 100 people crowded together. And this is in a country that's basically eliminated the virus. The last thing that's going to happen in this society is getting lots of people together indoors.
Well, the other way to put this is the least necessary worker in the United States of America is me. Because on the list of needs, seeing a magic show really far down. I mean,
and for me, I mean, I had this. Well, look, I wanted to get this critical, life-changing, life-saving information into people's hands, and would I be saving more lives if I kept up my tour versus people coming to the? But the thing is, who's coming?
You've proven you're more necessary than me.
Who's coming? But who's coming to my shows? My shows are people that are older and sicker and want to get healthier, and these are not the people I want to have, drawing out of their houses. So I pushed things to the spring. And look, the fall, I mean, we have so few people have been infected so far. Average states are only about 4% of the country, even including all the hot spots thrown in. And so we have a long way to go for herd immunity to stop this virus. So if this acts in any way like influenza, we should expect a wave in the fall. And so I'm skeptical that it's a responsible decision to crowd people together.
Yeah. Bill Maher said Friday night that if people could get on an airplane, they could certainly go to a theater. But of course, there's a tautology there because you shouldn't be getting on an airplane.
Shouldn't be getting on an airplane. Right.
Yeah, well, and I guess I got to ask you this because everybody's got to ask everybody this. You're thinking vaccine likely, unlikely, and when?
Earliest, if everything goes right, second half of next year for the general population. It's really humbling to realize that the average duration to create a vaccine is 10.7 years, over a decade for the average vaccine, and had a 96% failure rate. 96% never made it to market. And the ones that did took over 10 years. So having said that, we have a worldwide effort. There are more than 100 candidate vaccines right now in the pipeline. So even if 94% fail, if 96% fail, I mean, we still may be standing with a few. There's never been a human coronavirus vaccine. They started with SARS, gave up, unfortunately. The money dried up a few years out. Had we continued that research program, we might be in a much better space right now. But it's, a lot of things have to go right. And so it's interesting. The challenge testing is an interesting new concept that, volunteers offering normally what you do is you vaccinate large numbers of people.
I couldn't even think about that. I couldn't even get a moral position on challenge testing. Do you have a moral position on that?
You
should explain what it is, I suppose.
Right. So challenge to normally how do you test a vaccine? You do a large population, you vaccinate half, and then you follow them out for a few months and see who gets sick, who doesn't get sick. But of course, only a small percentage may necessarily get sick at one time, so you need huge numbers. It takes a lot of time. The clock is ticking. So it would certainly speed things up if you vaccinate half, don't vaccinate the other half, and then challenge them with the virus. You drip the virus down their nose, see who's really infected. Then we can know that week whether or not the vaccine works or not. Now, you still want to do a lot of people because you want to look for rare side effects and make sure it's safe, et cetera, et cetera. But this would dramatically accelerate vaccine production. And the reason there's been such hesitancy, such good reason to be hesitant, is because the medical profession has a shameful history. We're not just talking Nazi doctors. We are talking, right here with Tuskegee on down the list of human experimentation, not putting the safety of individuals. So I think the default position of skepticism should always be where you start. However, it's kind of strange that we are asking service workers, delivery people, restaurant workers to put their lives at risk. But to help create a vaccine, that's a road too far. Well,
the 7-day Adventists worked in the 8-ball at USAMRIT, where they put them in the 8-ball and
right. The conscientious objectors.
They did the virus research for USAMRIT, and I got to visit the 8-ball. Which is a horrific thing to think about, going in there and having them just vaporize a virus above you so you could breathe it in on purpose. And if you're even slightly sick that morning, you didn't get to do it.
The Minnesota hunger trials, most of our starvation research comes from conscientious objectors from the Minnesota data. Yeah, remarkable.
Yeah, and because the 7-day Adventists didn't want to look like pussies, so they sent them all in to do this really dangerous, horrific stuff. Now, I'll ask you another question. We do a show called Fool Us, and that would be bringing in, if we did not have a studio audience.
I thought you were going to invite him to be on it. Do you know any tricks you could do for
us? They're talking about trying to do a show in August or September. If we bring in individual magicians and they're working on stage alone and there's not an audience, with crew and stuff wearing masks, it's probably kind of okay, right?
If there was teleportation. Right? It's totally safe right there, but how are they getting there? You have people coming from all over the world. How are they going to get there? And so they're putting themselves at risk, but it's up to them to put yourself at risk. It's their body, their choice. They want to go eat crappy food, put themselves at risk. It's totally up to them. They need to be responsible, and after that trip, they need to isolate. They need to quarantine themselves for 2 weeks before they come in contact with anyone who's infirm, frail, sick, predisposing.
It was amazing. We shot Fool Us for 10 days, ending March 12th. We had people from all over the world, studio audience, shaking hands with everybody in everybody's airspace. We were just realizing it was getting dangerous the last day. You can't really bust us March 1st. Very hard to say we were irresponsible then. By March 11th, you can start saying we're responsible. But in that time, and we had no cases reported back. We really dodged a bullet. Yeah, because we had people from everywhere, Chinese magicians, Italy, Spain, everywhere, and no reports on that. So that doesn't mean there were none. It just means we didn't hear any.
You should get a specialized plane and go visit them.
The 1%ers are now private jetting all over
that's what you could do.
Right, coming up from Florida, right? But it's important to realize you do not become infectious for at least 24 hours after coming in contact. So even if they got they got exposed to the virus on the way there. If they're back on a plane within 48 hours, they're not exposing anyone on the way back because they haven't built up an infectious load. So they can get back to their homes and quarantine themselves or stay in Vegas for 2 weeks. All I care about is them putting other people at risk. I don't care about them because they're making the choice, but it's the choice. The people that come into their airspace may not have a choice. That's what I'm concerned about.
Yeah. Well, these are questions I will have to deal with. People are making contracts and booking, and
if they really teleport, then they probably fooled you.
Absolutely. They win automatically. I could talk to you about everything forever. You're just a true hero among us. Just a true hero. And the work you do is great. And I wish I could live up to all your recommendations, and I'll keep getting closer and closer. And maybe next time you see me, I'll be even thinner. But you see, I do not look as wicked fat as I did 5 years ago.
That is very true, and looking forward one of these days in studio.
Yes, that'll be really wonderful, and thank you so much. We should say that the book "How to Survive a Pandemic" is out. The person we're talking to, Dr. Michael Greger, and go to nutritionfacts.org.
That's such a good site.
If there's anything you need to know about nutrition, also I want to say I have never seen a book for the lay public with more footnotes. And I also want to compliment you. There's a couple places, I don't know what they are, I didn't underline them because I was reading a PDF, but there's a couple places where you actually say in the book, here's a study that seems reliable and really well done that contradicts what I believe is true, but here's the study. And there's nothing more I want out of my fellow citizens than that kind of honest doubt and the ability to shrug your shoulders. You are so willing to take a guess at what you think is best, and you're so willing to change your mind, and you're so willing to say, here's some data that's really good and really strong and flies directly in the face of what I believe. For all the lives you've saved with diet and so on, the information and emotional integrity of that kind of stuff is really inspiring. And it makes me want to be so much more careful with what I say and what I do. And especially now that two of our biggest problems are problems that didn't exist 150 years ago, which is too many calories and too much information. We did not have those two problems. The average person 300 years ago in their lifetime got the information in one issue of the New York Times. And deciding how we get the right amount of calories and deciding how we get the right amount of information are two very, very big human problems. And I believe you are one of the people that's helping in both of those.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
It's called science. It shouldn't. That's a low bar, right? I mean, wow, you actually try to come to the truth. What amazing.
Yeah. Well, and the sadness is that we do have to compliment you on that. And that was Penn Sunday School.
That was Penn Sunday
Not a double time. Cha-cha-cha.
And to our listening
You become naked.
nature sang and round us rang the music of the streets.
Yeah, Dr. Greger, I guess I'll have to try walking. You gonna try walking, Matt, when you're working? He's frozen. He can't even pace it. And we'll be back next week without Dr. Greger, which is a shame, because this was one of the most fun shows and one of the most informative. And it's not just Dr. Greger we love, we also love all of you. Peace.
Woo!
Oh, that was fantastic.